mic seems to be kind of low. Alright, so in this video, that looks good. Try going up just a hair. That's good, that's good. Alright, so this is part 3 of our international trip to Israel, and this is going to be the video explaining the process coming out of Israel through the Gurion International Airport and how to leave the country of Israel. The first thing I wanted to talk about is the VAT tax, okay? And you'll pay that when you purchase the item. Might have accepted something that might be dangerous, that you don't know what it is, something that might be kind of sketchy, something like that. They'll ask you questions like, where did you stay? That they're looking for things, suspicions. They're not so much caring about the answers that you give them. So as long as you're not doing anything illegal, there's really nothing to worry about with that. After you answer those questions, after you answer some of those questions, then they're going to tag all your luggage and they're going to look at your passports. Good night. This is not a quiet place. Alright, this is video 3 in this series about our international trip to Israel, and this is going to be the... Oh my goodness. Well guys, I'm officially done trying to make videos in airports. It is a fiasco. But this video is about the process getting home from Israel through the airports and everything you need to know to plan your trip before you even leave. So, I will say that the process coming home to America from Israel, although it was very sad, it's hard to leave Israel. It was actually kind of moving, getting on the plane and flying out of Israel. But I plan to be back, so it's not as sad. But that process coming back home to America, although it was sad, was not quite as smooth as the process getting to Israel. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about all the things that happened and all the things you need to prepare for that whole process. The first thing is you're just going to get to the Ben Gurion Airport. Okay, however you get there, you're going to get there in Tel Aviv. Actually, right outside Tel Aviv. Pretty close by, though. So once you get to the airport, really the setup is a little bit different than what we're used to in America anyways. So you're going to walk up and you get in the line for your flight, basically for your airline. And once you get in that line, you're going to walk up, and when you finally get to one of the tables up there, and this is before you check your luggage, you just walk up through the line, you get to a table where there's a person there and they greet you. They're going to ask you some important security questions, okay? So you just basically answer the questions, okay? They're going to ask you if you received any gifts, if you've been with your luggage the whole day. Really, they're just wanting to know if you're taking anything out of the country that you shouldn't be, even if you don't know that you might be doing that. So just answer their questions. If they say, did you receive any gifts? You know, we just said, well, we got a gift bag from our tour company, and he asked what was in it. And I said there was just a map, a hat, a pen, things like that. And we told him we knew what was in it. He asked us where it was at. I told him in my suitcase. Things like that. And really they're judging to see also your reaction, your demeanor. If you get really nervous or something like that, they're very well trained to be able to detect if you're lying or not. So just tell the truth, nothing to be nervous about, just answer their questions. They're very kind, just smile. He's going to ask, where did you stay? How long have you been there? Things like that. Then that's the person who's going to actually tag your luggage. They're going to take your passport. They're going to give you your boarding pass or boarding passes, tag your luggage, and they're going to tag it to the final destination. Then they're going to be able to check those all the way, basically, and you'll just pick those up when you get to, if you have a layover, say, in America, so you fly back into America, and then you have a layover in America, well, you're going to get your bags, you're going to pick them up, and you're just going to put them back on another belt. But they're going to be checked to the final destination, but you will have to get those. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Once you get your boarding passes, we went through security very quickly. It was very smooth. I have to say, for Israel being so high-tech and top-notch on their security and having a really tight security, it went really smooth. It was very quick, way easier than security in America, at least in my opinion. So the security was very smooth. Passport control, nothing really to say there. Then we found our gate. That was pretty easy. The thing that you are going to have to think about is the VAT tax. Okay, this only applies to you if you bought something that's basically very expensive in that country and you had to pay a tax. But you're exempt if you're not a citizen of Israel, so you'll get that money back in the airport, at least part of it. So that's a two-step process, okay, to get the VAT tax figured out. The first part of that process is before you do anything, okay? So you first walk into the airport. You're going to go over to this desk that says VAT tax. They're going to stamp a form, and you're going to turn in that form. They might have you find the item and then repack. But basically, that's just for the form. Okay, so they're going to stamp the form and turn in the form after repacking. Okay, so you just go there first. Then you can do the getting your luggage tagged, getting your boarding passes, going through security, finding your gate. Then once you find your gate and you're actually in the airport, then you can go find the VAT part 2, okay? So there's going to be another office in the airport where you can go to, and you just give them your paperwork, and they're going to be able to give you your money back. It's not actually all of the 17% that you paid. From what I heard, it's probably like 75% after they get their commissions and everything. But it is a little bit of money, and depending on how much you spent for that item, if you want to do the whole VAT tax thing, you can go get a good chunk of that money back. So it is helpful depending on how much you spent. Anyways, enough about taxes. Once we found the gate, there was some conflict. Okay, so our app was telling us to go to one gate. The screens were telling us to go to another gate. Very confusing. So I'm going to now contradict what I said in one of my earlier videos, that you want to get the app and you want to follow along on your phone because that's going to be more up to date. Not always, okay? Sometimes the app will be more up to date than the screens. Sometimes the app is behind time and you have to go where the screen says. Okay, so this is where the confusion started for us. To find our gate, we were trying to figure out if it was B6 or E1, okay? So what they told us, the people who gave us the boarding passes and checked our luggage and stuff, what they told us by word of mouth was actually more up to date than what our app said. So our whole group, there were several of us together, we were kind of able to figure it out together. We put our heads together and figured out which gate it was. But then flights got canceled, and they added a flight for us, I believe. And there was the whole time change thing. So the time of the flight was changing, and there was a flight that got canceled or something. So we were waiting on our plane, basically. And our flight ended up taking off 45 minutes late. But the app was telling us that B6, that our flight was boarding at gate B6 when we were standing in line at E1, like 10 steps away from boarding the plane. So don't always follow the app, okay? Because there's actually a person there with us, part of our group, who was getting notifications on his app basically saying that he was rebooked for a different flight or something. And he had to call them and say, no, I want to get on this flight. I'm actually about to board this flight. So that was kind of confusing. They took us, once we got there, I'm just going to tell you kind of the whole story, and then I'll go back and fill in some of the instruction for you to know. But they took us downstairs. That's where the gate actually was. We had to stand there for a long time. They actually had to bus us out onto the tarmac to board our plane because our plane had nowhere to come in to dock so that we could board it. I guess because the airport was so busy or something. I'm not quite sure. But it was the longest boarding process I've ever witnessed. It was over an hour and 15 minutes. It was probably like an hour and a half before, from the time that we were supposed to be boarding the plane to when we were actually boarding the plane. So that was kind of a debacle. But backing up a little bit, you have to figure out what's the most up to date. Okay, so when someone in the airport tells you something, you really want to take that into consideration because they may be more accurate than what your app says, or a lot of times the boarding pass doesn't even say what gate because it's so subject to change. So instead of relying on your boarding pass or the app, sometimes you have to rely on what the person tells you. So listen very carefully, watch the screens. So figure out what's most up to date. Then once you check your bags, and you're in the airport, when you get to your gate, you do want to throw away liquids. At least that's how it was for us. So when we were at the gate, they said no liquids are allowed onto the plane from within the airport. Now that's different from any airport that I've ever flown in the US. So if you just bought a water bottle, you have to either, we actually asked the lady, we're like, so if we just bought water bottles from inside this airport, what should we do? And she said, you can either drink it or throw it away. But she said you cannot take it through the gate onto the plane. So we had a few people who had to throw away some water bottles and some drinks and things. So keep that in mind. That's something that they did while we were there. And when they ask you about liquids and things, if you have everything in the proper size quantities for like a carry-on and things like that, that shouldn't be a problem at all. Then, like I said, we rode a bus to the plane. The PA system was broken, so it was a little chaotic. Yeah, it was the longest boarding process I've seen. But yeah, and it pushed our flights back and closed the gap of our layover. You're going to hear about that in the next video. Don't want to spoil that. So we really lost a lot of time for our layover, which was already pretty crunch. It was like 2 hours originally. So we lost some time on our layover, but the flight didn't take as long as it was supposed to. So they got us there quicker. So that at least helped. So yeah, pushed our flight back, lost some time on our layover, and the time that we had to go through customs. So that's what we were really thinking about when we saw how long the process was taking. We were starting to think about when we land in America, we're going to have to go through customs. And so that was part of the struggle as well. Now, I don't want to spoil the next video, okay? We did make it to America, but we missed our flight, okay? So you're going to hear all about that in the next video. But I'm going to walk you through basically how the whole customs process went on the state side and walk you through that process, some of the things we learned and some things that you can plan ahead for. So hope this is helpful for you and continue watching the next video.